My name is Fahad, and the incident I'm about to tell you today, once you hear it, you too will say that my surviving was truly nothing short of a miracle. So friends, before we begin, do this first. If you're in your room, turn off the lights and lock the door, and put your headphones in so you can enjoy this story to the fullest. Or if you're listening while driving, roll up your windows. So friends, this incident happened to me 2 years ago in the month of July, when the entire country was in the grip of severe monsoon rains. Every day the news reported roads washed away somewhere, bridges collapsed somewhere else, and entire villages submerged underwater in other places. I worked at a private company. Our job involved traveling to different cities to conduct surveys. One day, while it was pouring rain, my boss called and said, "Fahad, there's an urgent survey today. You need to leave right now." I said, "Sir, the weather is really bad. Because of that, today's visit was almost impossible." He replied, "I know, but this work is very important. It must be completed by tomorrow." Saying this, he hung up the phone. My heart wasn't in it, but what could I do? It was my job, so I set out. Evening was approaching. Black clouds covered the sky as if they had swallowed the sun forever. The rain fell relentlessly. The wipers were running at full speed, but the windshield still wouldn't clear. There were very few cars on the highway. Many people had probably postponed their travel because of the weather. After traveling for about 3 hours, my phone signal disappeared completely. I thought maybe, after a few more kilometers, the network will come back. But it didn't. Then suddenly, a sign appeared in front of my car. "Water ahead on the bridge. Cross with caution." I slowed the car down considerably. The rain had grown even more intense than before. When I got close to the bridge, I saw that water was flowing over it. I had only 2 options, either turn back or take the risk and go ahead. I judged that the water wasn't too deep. I eased the car forward slowly. For a few moments, everything was fine. Then suddenly, a strange sound came from the engine, and the very next moment, the car died. I tried to start it several times, but each time only a lifeless clicking sound answered. Around me, there was nothing but pouring rain, a pitch-black night, and rising water. I got out of the car to look for help. The water had already reached my knees. Just then, I saw a faint light in the distance. It looked like a lantern burning. I had no other option. I locked the car and walked toward the light. The rain was so heavy, I couldn't see clearly even 10 steps ahead. After walking for about 15 minutes, I spotted a small village.
The village felt deeply eerie, because as far as I could see, there was no sign of a single person. No sound of children, no sound of animals, no voices from any house. Only the rain and branches swaying in the wind. In the middle of the village stood an old tea stall where a lantern was burning. I hurried inside. Only 3 people sat there, an old man, a middle-aged man, and a boy of about 12 or 13. The moment I stepped in, all 3 looked at me at once, such a look as if they'd seen a ghost, not a human being. I greeted them. Only the old man answered, softly.
I said, "Sir, my car broke down near the bridge. Could I get a place here to spend the night?"
The old man stayed silent for a moment. Then he asked a strange question. "Son, did you cross the bridge to get here?" I said, surprised, "Yes." The moment he heard this, the color drained from his face. The other 2 exchanged a glance, as if confirming something unspoken between them. The old man came closer and said, "Son, where have you wandered into? I pray you leave this place alive and safe. Because, son, ever since a certain event happened here many years ago, it's impossible for any stranger to come to this village and leave alive. Because every monsoon, on the night of the first heavy rain, whoever crosses that bridge is never found alive by morning." Hearing the old man's words, I was about to laugh when, suddenly, knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the tea stall's wooden door. Everyone fell silent. I looked toward the door. The rain was still falling relentlessly. The old man didn't move from his seat. He only said, "Don't open the door." I asked, surprised, "Why?" Looking into my eyes, he whispered, "Because no one else lives anywhere near this village except us, and whatever is knocking outside is not human." At that very moment, another knock sounded, louder than before.
And immediately after that, from beneath the door, along with water, muddy, bare footprints began forming, moving inward, even though the door was still shut. Seeing this, a wave of terror ran through me, as if the blood had frozen in my body. I looked at the door again, then at the footprints, then at the old man. He was silently reciting something on his prayer beads. His eyes were fixed on the floor, as if this wasn't the first time he'd witnessed this scene. Outside, the rain kept pouring. The wind rattled the door, then the windows, then again. Knock, knock, knock. Each knock felt stronger than the last. It felt as though the knocking wasn't on the door, but on my own chest. Unable to control myself, I screamed and took a step toward the door. "Stop!" The old man's voice was so sharp that I froze where I stood. "If you want to stay alive, don't even touch that door." I asked anxiously, "Who on earth is out there?" The old man took a deep breath and said that whoever was at the door was not human. The other man sitting in the tea stall spoke for the first time. His voice was dry and trembling. "It comes every year, only on the night of the first heavy monsoon rain." I said, "This is all your superstition. Maybe it's just a traveler outside." Hearing this, the 12 or 13-year-old boy looked at me and said, "If it were a traveler, his footprints would form outside, not inside." Hearing this, the hair on my body stood on end. I looked down at the floor again. Indeed, muddy footprints were coming in through the door, but the door hadn't opened, not even for a moment. Suddenly, the lantern's light began to dim. The flame kept trembling because of the strong wind. It felt as though someone else was present in the room, someone we couldn't see. The old man took a small cloth bundle from his pocket with something tied inside it. He gently placed it near the lantern. A few moments later, the flame rose again. I watched in astonishment. "What was that?" He said, "I'll answer that question in the morning, if you're still alive by then." Hearing this sentence, I trembled, but for some reason my lips wouldn't move. And that very moment, the sound of something running came from the roof of the tea stall. All four of us looked up at once. The old wooden roof creaked with every step. It felt as if some heavy presence was slowly moving from one corner to another. I gathered courage and tried to peek out. Four of us looked up at once. The old wooden roof creaked with every step. It felt as if some heavy presence was slowly moving from one corner to another. I gathered courage and tried to peek outside. Thick raindrops kept striking the window pane. Nothing was visible clearly. Then, lightning flashed sharply, just for one moment. And in that single moment, I saw a man standing on the other side of the window. He stood perfectly still in the rain, completely drenched. His face was entirely covered by hair, and his neck was tilted to one side to an unnatural degree. Seeing this, I screamed, but the very next moment, he vanished. You saw it too.
the old man asked quietly. I nodded in agreement. He closed his eyes and said, "Now it has seen you too." Something seemed to catch in my throat. I couldn't understand any of it. About half an hour passed. The rain showed no sign of stopping. The tea stall's clock struck midnight. Ding, ding, ding. The moment the 12th chime ended, a voice came from outside. Very soft, very clear. Fahad. My heart stopped for a moment. I hadn't told anyone here my name yet. Not the old man, not the other two men. So how did the thing outside know my name? The voice came again, this time closer than before. Fahad, open the door. That voice sounded exactly like my younger brother's. Without thinking, I stepped toward the door. All other sounds seemed to vanish from my ears. Only one voice kept echoing again and again. Open the door. Suddenly, someone grabbed my hand tight.
It was the old man. His grip was astonishingly strong. He looked at me angrily and said that if I opened the door, that creature would destroy all four of us, because we four were the only humans left in this settlement. That's why he was telling me, absolutely do not open the door. I was about to ask something when, suddenly, the water flowing beneath the door began turning red. I looked startled. It wasn't water, it was blood. And in that very blood, footprints began forming again. But this time, along with the footprints, something else was coming in too. A wet hand with two long fingers, slowly trying to force its way in through the narrow gap under the door. The moment that wet hand sliding in beneath the door came into view, a shiver ran through my entire body. It wasn't an ordinary human hand. Its fingers were unnaturally long, and every fingernail was black, crooked and sharp, as if it had been buried in a grave soil for years. I stumbled back 2 steps in fear, but astonishingly, the old man didn't move an inch from his spot. He took a small vial from his pocket, scattered the white powder inside it in a line in front of the door, and began murmuring something softly. The instant that hand reached the line, a horrifying scream echoed out. It wasn't the voice of a man nor a woman. It sounded as though many people were screaming at once. The next moment, the hand withdrew back through the crack. For a moment, calm settled inside the tea stall, but that calm lasted only a few seconds. Then suddenly, the entire building began shaking violently. The windows rattled, dust fell from the roof. Outside, the pouring rain and the roar of thunder were so intense, it felt as if the sky had split in two. Panicking, I said, "What is all this?" The old man looked at me. There was fear in his eyes, but even more than fear, there was sorrow. He said slowly, "Now the time has come for you to know the truth. About 40 years ago, this village was inhabited. It rained back then too, but not this terrifyingly. A river flowed at the edge of the village, and an old wooden bridge crossed it. One monsoon night, a bus was crossing that bridge. The bus carried about 30 passengers. The rain was so heavy that no one noticed the flood rising beneath the bridge. The bus had just reached the middle of the bridge when the bridge collapsed, and the entire bus fell into the river. They say many of the bodies were never found. The river carried them away. But the real story began after that. 3 days after the accident, the villagers saw a man standing on the bridge at night. He was drenched. His face couldn't be seen. People assumed he was perhaps a survivor. 2 men went to rescue him, but neither of them ever came back. The next morning, only their shoes were found on the bridge. After that, every year on the night of the first heavy monsoon rain, 1 person would go missing. No one knew where they went. All that was known was this: the one who vanished was always the one who crossed that bridge for the first time. My breathing had quickened. I asked slowly, "So this year that person is me?" The old man lowered his head in silence. The ground seemed to give way beneath my feet. "But why?" I asked, crying. The old man said,
On that bus, there was a man who, in his final moments, pushed a child into the water to save himself so that he could climb out through the window, but he himself didn't survive either. They say, as he was dying, he screamed out, "If I don't survive, then no one will survive," and his body was never found, and perhaps his soul was never able to leave that river either. I shook my head in disbelief. This is all just stories. The old man stayed silent. Then he pointed towards the window. "If it's just a story, see for yourself." I gathered my courage and looked outside. The rain was still falling with the same intensity, but this time several hazy figures appeared, coming from the direction of the bridge. 1, 2, 5, 10. Then I lost count. They all looked like drenched human beings. Their heads were bowed, and they were moving silently towards the village. My heart pounded violently. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. The figures were gone now. "You saw them?" the old man asked. I said, trembling. "Yes," he said. "Those are all the people who went missing over the past years."
Then, at that very moment, a child's crying came from outside. It sounded exactly like a 5 or 6-year-old child calling for help. The boy sitting in the tea stall suddenly screamed, "No!" Tears filled his eyes. He said in a trembling voice, "Every year it makes the sound of children crying." The old man immediately covered the boy's ears. "If you listen to its voice, you'll walk outside." I covered my own ears with both hands too. On the wall of the tea stall, my name, written in dripping mud, was still trickling down. Fahad. My hands began shaking uncontrollably. I swore I didn't write this. The old man looked at me, but there was no surprise in his eyes. Only sorrow. He said quietly, "I know you didn't write this." "Then who did?" I asked. Instead of answering, he picked up the lantern, set it in a corner of the tea stall, and opened an old wooden cabinet. Inside sat a dust-covered register. He handed it to me. When he opened the book, it contained the name of every person, along with the date and year, who had ever lost their way on a monsoon night and wandered into this village. Dozens of names were recorded there. And then, on the last blank page, in fresh wet ink, a new name slowly began to surface on its own. Fahad. The register slipped from my hands. My breathing spiraled out of control. How is this possible? The old man was about to say something when suddenly, boom! The tea stall's door shook with a tremendous crash. This time it wasn't a knock. It was as though someone had slammed their entire body against the door. Then a second time, crash! A long crack split through the wood of the door. Now it wasn't only the sound of rain coming from outside, but the sound of many people breathing together. I peered through the window, and my heart stopped. Outside the tea stall, not just one, but dozens of drenched figures stood, all their heads bowed, all silent, and all their eyes fixed on one single place, me. Out of sheer terror, the lantern fell from my hand. The room plunged into darkness. Only flashes of lightning every few moments lit everything up. With each flash, I tried to run. The old man grabbed my arm and said, "Don't look into its eyes." But it was already too late. For one moment, I looked into its eyes, and suddenly everything around me changed. I was no longer in the tea stall. I saw myself standing on that same old bridge. The rain was falling like a storm. Below, the river raged like something possessed. And in the middle of the bridge, an old rusted bus stood. People sat inside, visible through its windows. All drenched, all silent, all staring at me. Suddenly, the bus doors began creaking open on their own, and one by one, the passengers began stepping out. Dripping from their clothes wasn't water, it was mud. Every face was horrifying. Someone's neck was broken, someone had no eyes, and someone's lips were missing entirely. And all of them began walking towards me together. I started backing away, but the bridge had ended. Behind me was only the deep, roaring river. At that moment, from among them, a tall man stepped forward. That same tilted neck, those same drenched clothes, those same black, empty eyes. For the first time, he raised his face fully, and in a low voice he said, "Tonight is your last night." Trembling, I asked, "Who are you?" He smiled. His smile wasn't human. His lips stretched unnaturally wide on both sides. "I am the one whom the river never returned.
He slowly extended his hand towards me. The instant his fingers came within a few inches of my hand, from somewhere far away, the first call to prayer rose into the air, and at that very moment, the entire scene began to shudder. The rain started to fade, the bus dissolved into mist, and for the first time, that creature looked afraid. It screamed in fury. No, not yet. The next moment, I fell hard to the ground. When I opened my eyes, I was back on the floor of the tea stall. The old man was splashing water on me. He was out of breath. When I came to my senses, the old man said he was astonished that I had survived, because that creature had never left anyone alive before. He said he believed my mother's prayers had protected me. Hearing all this, I thanked God that I was alive and unarmed. The weather outside had improved considerably now. The rain's intensity had eased a great deal. Just then, the old man told me, "Son, hurry. It's not safe for you to stay here any longer." The old man and his two companions walked me back to my car. I got in quickly and started the engine. I was amazed that after standing in so much rain for so long, my car started right up. As I was leaving, the old man told me, "Son, never think of coming back to this village again, or this creature won't let the chance to take your life a second time." With grateful eyes, I thanked them and drove away from there.